So you talked about the need for a 4-day work week, or some would like to say a 3-day weekend.
Yes, either one. I did the math. Either one of those works.
So I looked into this, and I think you know this. Like, I was looking in the history of weekends, and really it started, I mean, they've been around for a while, but it really was a union thing, right? Like the unions demanded, like, hey, we get 2 days off. Like, that's the move. And it was right after the Great Depression, if I recall.
Yeah. It was in the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, 40-hour work week. Well, first, let me explain the thinking behind it. Where right now, our work week is getting longer, not shorter. And it's having a disastrous set of effects on millions of people where we have this mental health crisis that we talked about last week. We have this worship of workism, and we're sleep deprived. I mean, you can name it. There are like all these stacked effects, and it's getting worse. Now, economists like Keynes projected we'd have a 15-hour work week by now because we'd be so wealthy. And it turns out he was right about the level of wealth. Like that line was correct. But he obviously got the number of hours in the work week very wrong because it's been getting longer, not shorter, here in the U.S. And Barack Obama actually said to me that we should be looking at a shorter work week because firms aren't going to employ people in the same way that they have previously. So let's see what happens if you do implement 3-day weekends, 4-day work week. The big thing people say is like, well, won't you then just do 20% less work? And that's not really the way it happens in real life, where organizations actually become more productive in many cases if you shorten the work week. And if you think about the way most of us work, we have bursts of productivity and then bursts of relative, like, I'm not really doing a whole lot right now. And those bursts tend to correspond to when the deadline is, but also what our schedule is. Like, I'll give you an example. The most productive day that anyone has is the day before they go on vacation for a while. Like that day all of a sudden is like, they just get so much stuff done.
Everybody knows that feeling too.
Yeah.
Go to the Bahamas. This shit's getting done. This is done today.
So your productivity expands or contracts depending upon the schedule. And that's why if you have a 4-day work week, you may get the exact same amount done as you would in a 5-day work week. You just get it done in less time. So let's stipulate that productivity, let's just say, stays the same, even though studies have shown it'll actually go up. Now, then you have a 3-day weekend, which ends up improving your level of rest, your mental health, your relationships, your time with family. It actually has even been shown to help more evenly distribute like domestic responsibilities, so that there are all of these positive effects, and the negative effects are, as far as I can tell, quite absent in the data. And here's the kicker: it would help create jobs at the margins, because if you're a firm and you have a 4-day work week, and let's say you need coverage, then you might have to hire another 20% of people, and then have them work different periods of time. And right now we're in a situation where we need to create jobs in the worst way, where we're going to be short tens of millions of jobs for months. So anything we can do that's going to stimulate hiring is a win. So the 4-day work week to me is something that we should be seriously looking at. And the way you make it happen is the same way you made the 2-day work week happen, which is you pass a law saying, hey, guess what? Like, these are going to be the expected work hours. Like, of course, you can have a firm that has people work different hours, but then you have to accommodate your employees in additional ways. And it's frankly,
so that's the dumb question. It's a law. And so right now the weekend is essentially structured around the 40-hour work week. You're not allowed to have a number of workers not allowed to work more than 40 hours a week if it's an hourly worker, right? And so
you get overtime after a certain level.
Right. And so you would make overtime after 30 hours or whatever.
Well, I mean, you could work with the number of hours. You could like there are different ways you could make the weekend longer. I have a feeling though that it wouldn't take that much because if you were to pass along this direction, a lot of major companies would adopt it, and then it's going to be very difficult for some companies to look up and say, like, actually, we're going to ignore that. Like when literally their competitor companies who are hiring the same people are doing. It's like, and so it's really interesting. If you're an employee, like which company you're going to choose? You're going to choose the one that with the 4-day work week, and so they're going to end up with like better people who are going to have the same level of productivity and higher contentment levels and better rest. It's like one of the signs to me about how sleep deprived we are is that when you have daylight savings time, when you lose an hour of sleep, car accidents go up. Like literally if like you have like one less hour of sleep, it screws us up enough where we're actually like a non-trivial number of us are going to like get into accidents.
Right.
So it's like that it's fun to have this conversation right now, like after Memorial Day, because it's like that 3-day weekend. I was saying it's 50% better than a 2-day weekend. But you'll come back in, come back into the office like much more ready to go. You'll be more productive from front to back.
Right.
And there are many workers obviously that like aren't in this world. It's like, so some people I know are looking at it and being like, well, it doesn't apply to me because like I'm like, I've got a job that
like in medicine
or it's like I get paid hourly. So like, what are you talking about? So there have to be ways that we make it like a universal basic income, make it so that people are able to work and not feel like they have to work themselves to the bone the way that many, many people do right now.
Is there an argument that economic activity will be boosted because you have more weekends? Like, do people spend, I don't know if you know these numbers, do people spend more on the weekends? I imagine yes. When you have free time, that's when you're going to dinner, that's when you're going on vacation, that's when you're traveling, that's when you're spending more on gas, who knows?
Yeah, of course. Of course we spend more money on recreational stuff on weekends than when you're working. Like, all you can do is eat lunch at your desk and whatnot.
Right.
It's stimulative of the economy. That 3-day weekend is stimulative.
Yep. But I also think this. I think this. It clearly pinched a nerve on Twitter when you tweeted it out. So that's why I wanted to explore it more with you in this. And you talked about this a lot, personally and on the trail, like this. The why of like it begs the question: why are we working? You know what I'm saying? And I think
it's obvious, Zach. We're working to maximize GDP. Like, have you made your GDP contribution today? Right? If not, then fuck you.
But you've kind of argued that work is activity that makes society better, theoretically. And now,
I love to work. Don't get me wrong.
I've learned that the hard way, man. You work all day, That Ronnie Chang thing where like Asians don't take off, they don't stop for Christmas, they don't stop for Thanksgiving. Like that's Yang, man. Like it was like, oh man, all day. I love that. You like finished your presidential run and you just kept working. You're insane. But we were joking on our team, Andrew, the irony of we're gonna work a 7-day work week to fight for a 4-day work week around the rest of the country.
Oh yeah, that's a pretty good summary, man. Because like so here's the thing too is like if you have a 4-day work week, and you're someone who likes to work, then you know what you're gonna do. You're gonna get tons of work done during those 4 days, and then those other 3 days you're gonna do different types of work on like yourself, your family, your health, your relationships, your community. Like you'll find stuff to do if you want to work. Like nothing's gonna keep you from from working, but you'll get the same amount of work done in less time.
Yeah. I'm a fan. I was on the fence at first. I was like, why would we change this up? And I think there's a lot of arguments in the pro column and not a lot of arguments in the con column. But here's the money shot, Andrew. Do you pick Monday or Friday?
My instinct is you pick Friday because I don't get shit done on Fridays. I'm just kidding. But I mean, another thing you do is you could just like let a company choose, and then you'd have some companies in effect Monday and some companies in effect Friday. If you're like a certain type of business, but generally speaking, you'd want to pick the same day for most companies so that so that everyone would have the benefits. Because one of the things you realize quickly is that weekends are best when they're synchronous. If you want someone to be sad, you give them time off when no one else has time off.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, we would just pick Fridays. I think that would be the win.